Did you realize that your subconscious mind is sabotaging you from reaching your highest goals? My conversation today with Pat Mancuso, who is absolutely redefining what a coaching relationship can look like, goes into why this subconscious sabotage is happening, what to do about it, how you can actually push through that ceiling and be truly in pursuit of your goals, allowing you to give, live, and serve abundantly. I can't wait for you to hear it. Welcome back to the Think Bigger Real Estate Show. I'm your host, Justin Stoddart. Today, your paradigm of the coaching model is going to shift. I have with me today Pat Mancuso, who's been in the coaching industry actually as an entrepreneur for over 30 years. I've now been coaching very specifically thousands of people over the past 15 years. And he's now developed a model that allows him to put his money where his mouth is. You pay based on your results, based on whether or not you get the results. It's going to completely change, again, the way that you look at coaching. Today, we're going to be talking specifically about how you can unlock your potential and then how you can unlock the potential of your organization. With that being said, Pat, thank you so much for being a guest today on the Think Bigger Real Estate Show.
Oh, Justin, thank you so much. I'm excited. What a great opportunity. And I love what you're doing to help the real estate industry because obviously we have so much potential.
Yeah, I believe that, Pat, and I really appreciate you saying that. I believe that the greatest untapped natural resource in the world doesn't come through fracking. It doesn't come through, untapped natural resource is really human potential. I think each and every one of us are far below our potential. And I agree. I think the real estate industry, although some say it's going to be disrupted and change and humans are leaving it, I believe that if humans tap into what they're really capable of, people will want humans to stay in the transaction, right? Obviously, you serve the real estate industry at a high level as well as other entrepreneurial industries. Tell us a little bit how you kind of found out this path for you was going to be coaching. What kind of helped that light go on for you? This is where I need to be. This is my bright spot. This is where I need to, really dig in and be.
Yeah, it's interesting. So the only industry that I knew for a long time was real estate. I actually, when I decided, came out of high school, I went to college, and in college, my goal was to be a CPA and own a CPA firm. That was my goal. And it's interesting because now reflecting back on that, I love numbers. I love accounting. I love financial statements, metrics, measuring, benchmarking. I love all that. However, what I realized very quickly is I couldn't be an accountant. Now, that's not a negative reflection on accounting. My core behavior that I subsequently discovered and learned about, it wasn't what I was comfortable doing. I could do it. And what was interesting is that over the years in all my life, I was always told by people, you're never satisfied. And I heard that so often in my life, you don't ever seem to be satisfied. And really, it wasn't that I was satisfied. I was always satisfied where I was at. I realized, though, that I always had more potential. I desired to have more. I desired to have other people have more. And that really came from my core behavior. And so we say, in our world that behavior is not right or wrong, bad or good. It just is. Yet understanding your behavior and understanding the behavior of the people that you lead or that you coach or that you mentor or are in your organization is critical to help them, because when you help them, they perform at a high level, which also ultimately helps the company grow. So for me, this started a long time ago, not realizing what it would turn into.
I think all of us that have kind of that aspiration to really inspire other people, I think as I look back at kind of my journey and my path and how I'm in the role that I'm in now, I would agree with you is that you really start to realize man, I'm capable of a whole lot more. And if I'm capable of a whole lot more, then people around me are also capable of a whole lot more. And it's fun when you start to kind of unlock that in people. Very good friend of mine, somebody that I work with, I was asking her the other day, tell me what life ideally looks like. And it was just such a fun conversation to kind of see her eyes light up and be able to kind of have her start to realize hey, that's possible, right? If other people are doing it, then you can do it too. And I know that totally lights up my world when I can not just have that conversation, but then start to work in pursuit of helping other people get that. Let's go back before we kind of dive into really this episode. We're going to cover how to unlock our own potential. I want to dig deeper into that, and then how we start to do that within our organization. So what would you say, Pat? What keeps people from fulfilling their commitments? What keeps people from really living in pursuit of their potential?
Well, first we have to understand how our brain works. I mean, everything starts with how we think, and that thinking is something that we've kind of fostered over our entire life. And it starts, back when we were kids and how we were raised and the people that we hung out with and our parents and the books that we read and the coaches that we had. And in that mindset, we say, is a significant portion. I mean, research, you hear people talk all the time, it's 80 to 90 to 95% starts with how we think. So what we have to do is we have to think about first that we have more potential. See, I say that you can't see more potential in others until you see it in yourself. So you have to start with yourself. Now, what does that look like? Well, we always have to be in a learning-based mode. Think about it. If I stop learning here and then everybody else is still growing here, eventually my opportunities are going to be less because I'm not growing. We always have to think about growing, and that expands our potential. So first we have to understand we have more. Now, the challenge for many is they don't necessarily think they want more, or maybe that growth or that trajectory is uncomfortable for them. And they go, whoa, if I go here, that's really an uncomfortable place for me. And the way that we're built, that actually holds us back and shuts us down. In fact, this morning before we were starting, I was putting together a blog post, and it was on what holds us back from success. If you think about it, if I said to you, what's your goal for the next 12 months? You'd rattle it off just like that. It would be really easy for you to go, my goal is this. And we get excited. And then as soon as we start thinking about what needs to happen, what actions we have to take, maybe what skills we have to learn, we start to get uncomfortable with that. And immediately, I mean, the statistics are 90 to 92% of people who set goals never achieve them. It's not because they don't have the potential. It's not even because they don't have the desire. It's because subconsciously how they're built to avoid pain and discomfort. And anything that's uncomfortable, like change, shuts them down right away. So that's the first thing we have to really realize, is that potential is inside of us, yet we're actually built to sometimes put a cap on it because of what we have to do to get there.
Boy, fascinating, Pat. You're right. We can say, I want more. I believe there's more inside of me. But if subconsciously that effort and those thoughts are being sabotaged because that discomfort is our kind of stopping point, how do we get through that then? How do we break through that ceiling of our subconscious mind really working against our conscious mind saying, I want more?
So first, it's awareness. And most people, again, when you learn, you study and you watch and you watch, and then you go, how does that apply to me? So let me give you an example of this. So I put this in the post that is going to come out shortly. I said, I'm driving down a road and I see a road closed sign. Now, Justin, you've probably never done this. However, I look beyond the road closed sign, and this is a road that I've been down 1,000 times. I don't see any heavy equipment. I don't see any earth moved or anything like that. I go around the sign because I don't believe that this road is closed. Well, that's fighting change. Right now, of course, you've never done that, right? You've never, ever, never.
I've actually got a really funny story about that topic, but anyway, for another time.
That's funny. So we're built to just to avoid change. We don't like it. It's uncomfortable. So that's the first part, is we have to understand that there's nothing wrong with it. It's just how we're built. Awareness is the key to change. And that's so important from a coaching and consulting perspective, is that when we work with our folks and you're doing the same thing on this podcast, the show here, you're creating awareness. And once you create awareness, now we can start looking at change. The biggest thing that we do, and over the years and the thousands of conversations I've had in rooms and events and workshops and coaching some of the most incredible people in our industry, is that what we have to do is we have to focus on the purpose. See, you don't wake up in the morning and go, my big deal, my drive is to do this show. Now, although you're excited about it and you love doing it, you have a purpose behind this. What this show is going to lead to is going to lead to other opportunities in your life. And those other opportunities are the things that are important to you, whether it's your family, your kids, your personal I just say to people, I get up in the morning to do what I do. I love what I do. However, I do it with purpose. And that purpose for me is my family and my kids and what we get to experience and what we get to give and what we get to give to others. And when you have that purpose, and most people don't have that purpose. If you ask most people their goals, they'll tell you their business goals. I could ask 100 real estate agents, what are your goals for the year? And they'll tell me volume, they'll tell me units. And it's really about, then I'll say, well, what are your personal goals tied to that? You want to make $1 million? That's great. Tell me what the $1 million represents. Like, if you don't hit the $1 million, what aren't you going to do? What aren't you going to experience? What aren't you going to give? And see, without that purpose, it's real challenging to have people achieve goals, because there are going to be ceilings. There are going to be uncomfortable things. Yet if I know that I'm going to have to go to my family and say, I'm sorry, we're not going to be able to do this because I didn't do my job, man, you get to impact people at a whole different level when they have that clarity.
You know, I'm a student of storytelling, of how it's such a powerful way to move people from one place to another. And one thing that really just stood out to me, what that you just said there, is that when people have the typical business goals, it's very much a cerebral thing, right? It's very much a numbers, very logical. When you take those numbers and you apply them to something emotional, it sinks deeper into their soul, right? Almost maybe even deeper into the subconscious mind, because now it's not just hitting certain numbers that you can talk yourself out of at some point of, I didn't really need those numbers. When all of a sudden it's tied to something very emotional about people you care about or causes that you care about, all of a sudden now when you say no to that, it strikes at a deeper chord and maybe disrupts that subconscious sabotage. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, let's think about this. When people struggle financially, they start cutting out some of the most important things in their life, like insurance, like healthcare. I know of somebody right now in my world that they've got somebody in their world that, because they're not in a great financial position, they can't have a procedure that, although it's not life-threatening, they should really have. And see, when you take that further, when you think about let's just use a real estate agent. It doesn't matter if it's a real estate agent, business owner, entrepreneur, somebody in title or mortgage, it does not matter. When you think about if something were to happen today, a question I ask people from a coach and consultant perspective is, I say, if something were to happen today to you, is your family in a position, if something were to like tragically happen to you, are they in a position to lead the life that you would desire for them after you're gone? Now, that's an uncomfortable question. And one of the things that I truly believe for me is a gift is I can ask those uncomfortable questions because I care. If something were to happen to that individual tragically today and their family wasn't in the best position, how does that make them feel right now? And that's where the opportunity to change their activity is, because intentionally they wouldn't want them to not experience life at the level that they would desire intentionally. Yet most of this is subconsciously. So if we can get them over that hump of whatever it is, whatever the ceiling it is, man, it just, because otherwise if they don't, that could happen. And if it happens, then all the things that they had done throughout their entire life to provide for themselves and their family, now they're gone. They can't do that, and they haven't provided for their family. Nobody ever intentionally wants to leave anything in a way that they might leave it, and that's where coaching and consulting comes in. And that's where I feel like I have a responsibility. In fact, Justin, I say this all the time to people. I have a responsibility based upon my role and the gifts that I believe I was given to take a stand for people's greatness. As uncomfortable as that may be, I'm going to take a stand for them, and I'm not going to leave anything on the field because I feel like it's my responsibility. Now, it's their choice to embrace it. It's their choice to change their actions. However, that's my responsibility. Just like in your world, your responsibility is to protect people in this biggest investment they have through the instrument of title and title insurance. That's your responsibility, and you're going to take a stand for that for everybody you come in contact with.
It's interesting when you put it in those terms that, and again, one of my other mentors says, like, success is my duty and my obligation, right? And you could say that that's maybe a selfish thing, but it's not when you put it in terms of the people that you could impact for good, or the people that would be left in a vulnerable spot should something happen to you. All of a sudden, it's not selfish at all. In fact, it's the most selfless thing you can do,
Right.
is to live life and do work at your highest possible function, right? At your highest level. That's what's expected of you, because every time that you shrink below that, you're actually, other people are suffering because you're hiding.
And this Justin, this isn't just with business. I mean, I look at this as that, we talk about leadership is a big thing for me, and because you're impacting others, and it's not just leadership in business. I mean, think about being a parent. Do you have parent? And if you have parent, like, what does that impact, and who does that impact? And, I would make an argument, without getting political or controversial, some of the issues that we have in our world today is because as parents, we've got some people who haven't parented at the highest level, instilled the values in folks. And see, I look at that can't be a 50% responsibility, and neither can leadership, because that impacts others. You got to be all in. And in fact, if you're not all in what you're doing, either maybe you're in the wrong role or opportunity, or we just need to look at and kind of change that perspective, create that awareness. It's not a right or wrong. It's just, we've got to look at what that impacts. And that's why I feel like, for me, I talked to somebody the other day who I coached for 8 years. And she said, there were times when I got off that phone with you that I didn't like you. And I said, you know what? I appreciate that. The fact is if you hire a coach to like them and they like you, we have a great partnership where we're paying for friends. My job is to help you get where you want to get to. And that's going to mean I'm going to create uncomfortableness because I care. And I'm going to do that whether you like it or not, because that's what you hired me to do.
So my next question you've already answered, which was fabulous. I wasn't expecting that to necessarily be the answer, although it makes total sense, which is, once you get clear on this purpose, right, whether it be the people that you can help or the tragedies that you can prevent against, right? How do you keep that in your forefront? One thing that you said is there's got to be an outside party that's not tied to your specific levels of discomfort, a coach, right? They can continue to pull you through that, to say, no, look, you're stopping because you're comfortable, yet that's not, or because you're getting uncomfortable, but that's not where you should stop, right? So it's this kind of third party out there helping you recognize your blind spots and pull you up through that, right? Is that accurate?
It's exactly right. And, we're not built to hold ourselves necessarily accountable, particularly for the difficult changes and the uncomfortableness, because we're built to avoid pain. And so because of that, we need somebody who can see the blind spots. And by the way, most times coaches can see those blind spots almost like that, because they don't have the emotional attachment to it. I'll never forget one time I was coaching a client, actually out in your neck of the woods in Seattle, and he was struggling to get his lead gen in. And, lead gen, a part of any business, it does not matter. And so he came to a coaching call one day, and I said, well, okay, so here's the deal. We've given you a few weeks to get this right. You haven't done it, so I'm going to take a different approach. And I said, how much do you care about your wife? And he says, I said, on a scale of 1 to 10. He said, well, a 10. I said, well, I'm not so sure you do. And then there was silence. And he said, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, because you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing every day, you're not providing the income for your family that you need to, correct? He says, yes. And I said, well, so I'm just curious, what does your wife think about that? And there was a little bit more silence. And I said, well, let's do this. I'm not sure she realizes truly what you're not doing on a daily basis. So tomorrow at 9 o'clock, when you're going to start your lead gen, if you don't, you're going to call her and let her know that you're not doing your lead gen. And he goes, I'm going to what? Well, I said, instead of her not knowing what's going on and not understanding why you're not hitting your numbers, we're just going to let her know. And he said, well, I'm not going to do that. And I said, well, good. You're going to text me. And if you don't, then I am. Now, by the way, that's pretty aggressive.
Yeah.
He made his lead gen calls that next day for 9 months in a row. His life changed, his business changed, because he understood now it wasn't about his discomfort. It was actually about the discomfort he would feel having to call his wife and tell him he's actually not doing what he's supposed to be doing.
It's amazing how behavior changes when transparency enters, right?
When clarity enters, right?
Mhm.
It wasn't his intention not to provide for his family. And there were some other things that we had to work through. The point was, though, is that when there's other parties involved, do you have kids?
I do. 6 of them.
Okay, let me ask you a question. Have you ever told your kids you're going to do something for them or with them?
Yes.
What have they done up till the point when that event was going to happen?
Oh, they constantly remind me.
That's accountability, right?
Right.
And you never intentionally disappoint them, correct?
That's right.
See, this started a long time ago. And when we were kids, we didn't have a problem with accountability. We didn't even have a problem with holding other people older than us accountable. And then when we go through some stages in our life, it's like we go through a car wash and we forget about that. Oh, by the way, those 6 kids you have, they have no fear in anything, right?
Yeah, I feel it. Yeah, they're relentless, right? When
Well,
there's
of
something that they
course.
want, that they think that they are going to get, like, it's constant reminders.
See, we go through stages in our life, and they say behavior is set about the age of 21 to 22, and we have all these experiences, and they all impact us subconsciously. The brain is like a recording station, and it 24/7, 365, our entire life is recording things. And what it does is it takes those things and it puts them subconsciously, and then without us even realizing, it pulls them out at times to help us make and guide our decisions. And sometimes it helps us, and sometimes it holds us back. So it's funny when you actually study and watch and you're aware and you go back into your life. As kids, we hold people accountable at a high level. I've used that as a coaching technique in the past, where somebody has kids and there's something that they want to do with their kids. And so we actually, in fact, had a gentleman in Portland who came to one of our programs that I was doing, and we set a goal for him to buy a house with his family. And we asked, I said to him, okay, well, we're going to go take a picture of the house that you're going to buy. And he looked at me, and it was like I was crazy. And I said, you're going to take a picture with you and your kids in front of that house. You're going to create a big purpose, a big why. You're going to put that photo up on the refrigerator. And every day when you walk by and the kids walk by, you're going to see what your big purpose is. They were in that house 8 months later.
Wow. Probably in part because the kids are like, Dad, are we getting the house today? Dad, are we getting the house today?
People don't intentionally disappoint the people they care about. They intentionally don't do that. And see, when you can create that intention and that purpose, no matter what the business, I mean, think about this. As a business owner, you have people who are depending upon you, around you, for their life, their purpose. And when you don't have clarity of what they desire in their life, it's kind of hard to provide the opportunities in the environment for them to succeed in that. And therefore, as a leader, we're missing that responsibility as well.
Yeah, the impact of not being in pursuit and on track to your potential. Again, yeah, it doesn't just affect your immediate family, right? There's repercussions, whether it be just inspiring other people and or leading other people in your organization. Such a great point. It's probably a great segue, Pat. Let's move into now the second part of this episode, which is unlocking the potential within your organization. I would ask you this question: what keeps organizations from fulfilling their commitments, from reaching their potential?
People. It's pretty simple. If you ask any business owner or entrepreneur what their issue is, they'll give you the issue. And then when you unpeel it, eventually it'll come back to people. Either they don't have the people they need, the people that they have are not in the right roles, or the people that they have are not performing at the highest level. It most often comes back to people. And so one of the things that we do in our organization is we help small to medium-sized companies identify. First, you got to be aware of how people function, how they tick. So behavioral assessments, personality profiles are all over the place. However, what has to happen is we have to identify that core behavior of the individual. And like I said earlier, that core behavior is set about the age of 21 to 22. We're human beings, we can flex. Yet if you ever heard in a sporting event an announcer say that athlete looks like they're in the zone. Mm-hmm. See, they're in the zone, making it look easy, scoring 50 points or 60 points in a game, scoring 5 goals in a game. It's like everything they touch turned to gold. Well, as human beings, we have a zone. We have a comfort level where we can do an activity, we can take an action, which for some is easy. It's like, bring it on. And then for others, if we have them in the wrong role, it's very uncomfortable. It's full of discomfort. It's not that they can't do it for a period of time. However, over a period of time, it becomes very exhausting to them. We say that people have a battery in a battery life, if you may, in their behavior. And if I'm operating in my zone, my battery is not drawing down very much. If I'm operating outside of my zone, my battery's drawing down almost to empty every day. I have to then recharge it and bring it up every day. And if I don't have things in my life that do that, typically my battery is not going to get full, and now it gets drawn down. And so you see performance impacted by this. In fact, I would make the argument right now, one of the things that we'll see down the road is we'll see the impacts. We're already starting to see it, except we'll see it from a more scientific perspective. Behavioral styles weren't built to do this 24/7. Behavioral styles, different behavioral styles need that interaction, need that person standing next to us, need the person in the meeting versus on the Zoom meeting. Now, there's nothing wrong with this, yet there's a behavioral piece to this. Now, some behaviors love this because they don't have to be in a room. They don't have to be around people. It's not a right or wrong, yet it is impacting performance in companies. All day long, it's impacting performance. In fact, one of my family members works for a government agency, and one of the things they've already discovered is that people working at home are less productive, so they're bringing people back, and this is a government agency that consumers depend upon. And so it's really interesting to see that. So the one's behavioral zone, when you understand it and you understand who you are through a behavioral assessment, it's much easier to understand how you can perform at a high level. And for organizations, let's just say I have 5 key leaders in my organization and 3 of them are not in the right roles. Well, they're impacting possibly hundreds of other people in an organization, which is impacting the entire organization.
So from the start, if you were to say, my organization is not yet fulfilling its potential, we're not on track for that, where do people start? Step back?
Yeah, so we have to start with the CEO. We have to start with the business owner, the rainmaker, or whoever's responsible for that business. Because in order for our organization to help them, we've got to understand the goals, the CEO, the business owner, the entrepreneur. What is their purpose? What is their behavioral style? You know, there's been thousands of companies that have struggled to move to beyond the next step. And we've discovered through the process over the years that it's the CEO. It's not that the CEO isn't great. The CEO might be in the wrong role. Maybe their skill set is more visionary and it's not leadership. It doesn't make them right or wrong. It just means that the organization is being held back. So it starts with the mindset of the entrepreneur, the business owner, that my organization has more potential and therefore I'm willing to embrace the process, number one. Number two is you've got to identify the roles. And so as you and I were talking, you know, in an organization, a title company, let's say, for example, you've got salespeople. And then you've got operations people. Well, let's take our salespeople and let's say we had 100 salespeople in the organization. You're going to, if you looked at performance, there'd be the number 1 performer down to the number 100 performer. We would make the argument and prove it all the time. Those top 25% are very similar in their behavior, and that's why they're performing at a high level. So we assess that, we determine what that behavioral match looks like, and then that's what we hire to, or that's where we bring people into those roles. Now, it doesn't mean the other people in the organization aren't great. It doesn't mean that we can't have a great fit for them. However, we've got to put the people in the right roles in the beginning. And that's the first part. And then it's actually pouring into them and investing in them and training in them. Because the second big challenge for organizations is they hire great people. They hire talented people. In fact, they're the right match for the right role. And then they let them go. They don't actually train them. And what happens is that then those people develop their own style, their own method, which may be great, yet may not be replicatable or duplicatable. It may not be consistent with the organization's models and systems and values. And therefore, what happens is you've got 10 different salespeople doing it 10 different ways, which means the customer experience is impacted because the customer has an expectation. If I do business with this company and I do business with this company now in a different city, it's the same delivery, and yet it might not be because now we have people not following models. And we call that the lead motivate portion or action training portion of what we do. It's like picture a kite string. if you understand how a kite flies, you don't let all the string out for the kite the minute you put it up in the air. You let it out gradually once you know that the kite is up. Well, training is the same way. If I hire somebody for a role, I've got to train them, let the kite string out. Now, I might let it out faster depending upon how they move through that cycle. However, most organizations hire somebody and then they let them run. And that's not good for the person as well. The person that they hire wants to have that investment in them, wants to build that relationship. And then beyond that 90 days is where we look and we say, okay, now where do we truly want to take this individual? Where do they want to go? What are their goals and aspirations? So it's not a perfect process. However, it's highly effective. And when the organization operates on that model, and then also, let's say you and I were in the same organization, when I understand your behavior and you understand mine, we can more effectively work together.
It just seems when people kind of go at this by chance, right? When they don't realize the importance of having the right people in the right roles, training them, developing them, and then creating the same accountability systems that we talked about with helping unlock individual potential, right? Those same things then apply, that an organization is far below its potential, right? And similarly, the impact of that is that those families that are in that organization, they're now vulnerable, right? And they're not getting the same opportunities that they otherwise would. And I mean, that ripple effect is tremendous. And it's really interesting to hear through very simple models of accountability, of clarity, of personality profiling, from training, that can literally put a company, same group of people potentially, on a different trajectory, thereby impacting all the lives and families connected to those individuals and the ripple effect upon customers and so forth. And it's small tweaks make massive changes, right?
Oh, and people want people to care. And, one part of our model is we're going to meet with our key leaders are going to meet with their key people on a weekly basis, not from an accountability perspective. There might be some performance conversation. However, it's also about where are they at? Where do they want to go? What do they want to do? Who else do they want to impact? So it's not just business all the time. Yet when you can build that relationship, man, you can do so many great things. And then it transforms to the customer. So yeah, no doubt.
Well, and like you helped us to identify earlier, rather than just having business meetings that talk about the numbers, it's what do those numbers allow us to have and to do and to become and to give. And all of a sudden it takes it from a cerebral to an emotional, and people are more invested.
Well, I'll give you one tip for all of your folks that are watching or listening. Never, ever commit time without understanding what the outcome is. So if you're going to call me and you say, hey, I'd like to get on your schedule for 30 minutes, I go, great. Now, what's our objective? In other words, at the end of the 30 minutes, what are we attempting to achieve? And where I have to, as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, as somebody in production, if you may, I have to decide, is that commitment consistent and in alignment with the commitments I've already made? Remember all those commitments that I've made over here. And if it's not, I'm not going to make that commitment in most cases. And so when you're leading others and you go, we're going to call a meeting, anybody who I've ever coached over the years, I always coach them in the beginning. When you take somebody else's time in the organization, no matter who it is, there better be an achieved outcome at the end of that time you're asking them to commit to. Otherwise, A, we just wasted time. B, we did more damage to the relationship. And C, we didn't grow anybody. And see, that's just one little tip from a coaching, a consulting, and organizational development perspective that most people miss. I mean, I'm sure you get on calls and you get off and you go, what did we accomplish?
Yeah.
And see, that's crazy to me. 15 minutes a day. Think about this. 15 minutes a day wasted 5 days a week over a year is 91 hours a year. 15 minutes, Justin. Now, I bet we all would raise our hand and go, I waste at least 15 minutes a day in inefficiency.
Yeah.
That's 91 hours. That's 2 weeks of production or 2 weeks of vacation, whichever way you want to look at it.
Yeah. Pat, this has been so insightful. I want to get into your model here a little bit before we wrap up.
Absolutely.
Again, you're putting your money where your mouth is. And you're saying, in fact, talk to us about kind of this commitment that you make to people that sign up for your coaching.
So, I'm going to share numbers, not arrogance, just time on task. over 25,000 hours of coaching conversations in the last 15 years. 12,000 individuals that I've had come to events that I was a part of. Lots of coaching conversations and opportunities with small to medium-sized business owners and entrepreneurs. And one of the things that always would happen is people would come to me and, they would say, hey, I'm not happy with my coach. And, from various organizations, it wasn't just one. They would be coaching, with this consultant or this coach. And I would always say, well, tell me what you're unhappy with. And, well, I'm not getting results. They're not holding me accountable. They're not pushing me. I feel like I'm coaching them. And I would hear that so often. And then the next thing is, well, would you coach me? And they would say that because they either had been exposed to me in an event or somebody else had told them something. And so over the years, I developed this. It doesn't have to be that way. And I'm going to say this, and again, not from an arrogance perspective, getting people to perform is not difficult. We overcomplicate it. See, if I can have somebody who's willing to be in a coaching relationship, that's the first step. If you're not willing to change and you're not willing to get into a coaching relationship, then don't do it. Because the magic dust, I don't have any magic dust here anywhere that's going to go, poof, you're perfect. So the second thing is that we tend to overcomplicate success by inventing new models. There isn't a lot of new models. Maybe there's some tweaks to them. However, when you follow a model, you'll typically have success. And then the third thing, which comes from that purpose, is if I understand and I go real deep on what your purpose is, and that's where most coaching, I think, in my opinion, misses. They talk about the numbers, they talk about the accolades, they talk about the volume, they talk about the production in units, is if I understand what the purpose is, if you tell me your goal is $1 million of net income, by the way, that's another interesting piece when you're in coaching with folks. If you tell me your goal is $1 million of net income, then the first question I'm going to ask you is I'm going to say, Justin, why? Tell me what the $1 million represents. Break down how you're going to spend, save, give, whatever it is around the $1 million. And if you can't tell me that, that's one of the first things we work on in our program, because without that, you don't have a purpose. That isn't going to force you to get up in the morning and do what you need to do when you don't want to do it at times that you don't want to do it. So if you have that and you have a great coach, it's easy to guarantee coaching. So what I decided to do is I decided to be a little disruptive, and we said we're going to take on 10 clients under this model. And at the end of every call, we have a check off. How was this call on a scale of 1 to 10? And I don't want you to tell me it was a 10 if it was not a 10. And because it's very purposeful, because of our intake process, we go real deep. And then at the end of the month, we're going to ask our clients a question. We say, okay, our goal is a 2x, 3x, or 5x minimum return on your coaching investment. Did we do that this month? Yes or no? If they say no, would you like a refund? And if they say yes, well, then we're going to give them back a refund for that month. Now, understand, Justin, we've been validating that all along the way. And so it's my job to get them to that 2x, 3x, 5x plus return so that they actually get the results. It's all about the results. And so we decided, and people would say, who's we? Well, it's myself and my director of operations right now. And we've got, other opportunities. And yet this is the opportunity that I want to perfect and say, okay, we took on 10 clients and here's what we did for them. And we X their return. And we really believe, and we've already started to see it. And sometimes people will say, well, is it just financial? No. I've been coaching an individual for about 3 weeks. And one of the first things we did, he was working 80 hours a week. Now, he's going to make $1 million this year. However, he'd get home and he'd walk into the house and he would see, and he's got 2 young kids, and he wouldn't really see them. Now, when divorce happens, what's the $1 million worth?
Yeah, half that at least.
Yeah, exactly. So we went through a very simple model in the first call. It was the only action that we asked him to take in the first call. He comes back to the next call and it was like we changed his world. What's that worth?
Yeah.
See, sometimes it's the simplest things, yet think about it. You're married, you have kids, you walk into your house, and the first thing you do is justify that you got to get on the phone to deal with an issue.
Mm-hmm.
They say gradually, then suddenly. Nobody goes bankrupt suddenly. They go gradually. Nobody gets divorced suddenly, gradually. Your kids don't grow up suddenly. They grow up gradually. Everything happens each and every day. So that's our philosophy. And we've got 2 spots left in our group of 10, which has been really awesome. We just rolled this out 2 weeks ago. And we've said no to some folks. That's what's also been kind of fun. I want to enjoy the people I'm coaching. I want to partner with them no matter what business they're in. We've got real estate, we've got broker, we have a mortgage broker that we're taking on. And so any small to medium-sized entrepreneur, businesses are based upon financials. It doesn't matter what the business is. Lead generation, leads, customers, clients, it's just a different person at the other end, and yet the fundamentals are still there. So if anybody has any interest that's listening today, they go to coachwithpat.com. They'll fill out a basic questionnaire, and we'll reach out to them no matter if they'd be a fit for us. Set up a call with them. We'll share the program with them. We'll ask them some questions based upon their submission of their intake, and we'll go from there.
I love it, Pat. Like I said, you're navigating what I believe to be new waters in coaching. And I think you're making it more accessible for people. I know a number of people that would love to be coached, but they're concerned about getting a return. And if you can have somebody that says, look, we're going to get you a return, or if not, we're going to ask you if you want a refund. I mean, that's just a powerful place to be, for you to be able to guarantee your results like that, to have people really be able to, in confidence, say, I'm going to get a return because my coach is committed all the way to his own bottom line. And so therefore I'm going to be committed as well. Right. And
I'm sorry for interrupting, where I picked up this idea was Jay Abraham. If you know anything about Jay Abraham, his model is be disruptive, do something different, back it up, deliver it, and then you pretty much can dictate where you go from there. And so I've listened to Jay over the years, and yet there was a recent book that he came out with called The 9 Sticking Point Solution. And somebody turned me on to that in one of the podcasts that we did, and I started listening to it, reading to it. And basically it's a book on how to deal with turbulent times. How do you stand out in turbulent times? What a great book for right now, right?
No kidding.
And as I was listening to him and listening over the years, I went, I know how to do this. I know how to do this. And it's got to be the right person. They got to follow the models. They got to be a person of action, and they have to have a big why where they want to go to. There has to be some bigger purpose where they want to go to. So the folks that we've taken on so far, it's been fun. And we're looking forward to filling those last 2 spots. We had a goal to fill them by the end of August. So we're ahead of where we wanted to be when we launched, which is pretty exciting. And it's been really cool. And we're going to come out with a group coaching program that's going to service the folks that may not be at that situation and they don't want to be coached right now. And then we've got a program coming out called the Entrepreneurial Edge, which is going to be our boot camp, our workshop for the things that I've learned over the years about how to help business owners in a very short period of time raise their results. So we've got lots of great stuff going on.
www.coachwithpat.com. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, Pat, signature question of the show, which is this. You're a big thinker. That's why you're on the Think Bigger Real Estate Show. What do you do on a regular basis to expand, to continue to be a big thinker, to continue to expand your possibilities?
It's a great question, and full transparency, I'm probably a thinking junkie. There's so many different sources that I learned from. One of the things that we decided in March, understanding there were some changes in my world that led to where we are today, is I started taking in information on online, social media, online education. The online education industry, by most aspects, is going to be $3 to $330 billion in less than 3 years. Now, this assessment was pre-COVID. So I'm going to say no less than about $10,000 of investment since March in programs that are learning for me on different things, different opportunities. It's amazing the opportunities out there that online social media and giving back and impacting others. It's just amazing. And so I'm always learning. And in fact, probably 2 to 3 hours a day, I'm taking in different types of information from all different sources. It does not matter what industry, it does not matter, who they are. It's you have to be learning based. And in fact, and I'm not sure. I think this is Jay Abraham. So if I'm wrong, I'll stand corrected. When you pour into yourself and learn, your value goes up. When your value goes up, you're able to help more people, and you're able to impact your life at a higher level. So when you stop learning, people say, well, I don't have the time to read. You need to make the time to read, because the people who are going to bypass you are reading at a high level. I look at an individual, a real dear friend down in San Antonio. He came into real estate 5 years ago, and he's making 2 million GCI in less than 5 years. And all he's done is follow the models and then continue to learn, be a little disruptive. He's 32 years old, making 2 million gross income in real estate. So for me, I'm a junkie. I mean, if I shared with you how much stuff I get on a daily basis, how much I, spend at night when the kids go down and learning, and how, you have to, things are moving so fast. And if you're not learning, you're actually falling behind.
I had that conversation with my wife at one point. I said, you know what, there's people that are far smarter than I am. They're further down the road than I am. But the reality is I have such an insatiable thirst for personal growth and for development that
right.
Eventually I'll win, right? And it's not a competition, but it's a competition in reaching my potential, right? And in the marketplace, we're competing, right? And I said, at the end of the day, they won't outlearn me. Like, they won't outwork me. They won't outlearn me. Therefore, my outcome is already determined, right?
You're doing it right now, Justin, with this type of event, with this type of opportunity. First, you had to learn how to do all this. Mm-hmm. And people would go, well, what do you need to learn to do this? Trust me, doing it myself on the podcast side, it's a huge learning curve, and you don't reinvent the wheel, you learn from others. And so not only are you learning to do it, now what you're doing is you're bringing other people to the party to learn from them. And all of that is learning. And it seems so simple and so subtle, yet, you'll go back to this, you'll listen to this session, you'll take a bunch of notes, and then you'll take and go, okay, what's the first thing I need to implement from what I heard today? Or what's the first thing I need to share with the people that I'm in business with? You have a target audience in every day. And boy, if you're not doing that, in the today's world today, again, I look at how businesses are interacting with their consumers. And in, our most common world, real estate, our consumers are people who own homes, want to buy them or sell them. Your consumers are the agents who help those people. And yet I don't see enough people doing this. Think about it. If I'm I have a child in school who may or may not be going back to school, and I'm sure you might have the same thing as well. There's such an opportunity there for people to give back. Like, if I were selling real estate today and I had a database of people, I'd go hire a tutor, give that as a value add back to my customers in my database so that their kids could get tutored by my online tutor, where the parents didn't have to do it. Now, how much would that cost me on a daily basis to hire a tutor for an hour or two?
Not that much compared to the value, right?
And see that, and those are just ideas that you pick up from learning from other people. So we have so much potential. Yeah. I've scratched the surface on my potential. And that's why I feel like every day I need to be growing at a high level so I can deliver that back to other people.
And that's the exciting part, right? Is that our future is very bright. And as we are in pursuit of that through learning and being coached, having people lift us through that subconscious sabotage that all of us have.
Well, and let me say one other thing, Justin, and I know you're going to close this out here, and I apologize. This is the time when those learners really excel, because everybody else, a lot of people are so struggling with what's going on in our world. And I'm not making light of it. There's a lot of interesting things going on. Yet there's also so much opportunity, and there's so much of an opportunity to give back and impact people that they desperately need it right now. That's why it's so important.
Yeah. Amen. Well said, Pat. I want to thank you so much for everything that you've contributed today. It's been super fun to learn from you. And I know that your coaching students are fortunate, beyond fortunate, to have you in their corner, giving them your guarantee that you're going to help them get to their next level. And what a powerful offer you've made to the marketplace. And I want to thank you for that. And also I want to remind everybody that's listening here today, my final charge, which you hear me say regularly, and they are these 3 simple words, and they are go think bigger. Thank you so much, Pat, for your help today. Such a pleasure to learn from you, and thank you for helping us think bigger.
Thanks, Justin. I appreciate the opportunity.
You bet.